Hi, this is Brandon with ChiroUp, and I was just looking through the literature and I found a really cool article. And I knew I had seen this author's name before on workstation ergonomics and training in the workforce. And I thought this one was pretty interesting because it's one of those things that on a daily basis I encounter. And that is those patients who have that chronic strain, that chronic sprain, that chronic stiffness when they're working. And they have to work. You know, I have to work, you have to work. So we have to keep them at work, but we also have to find a way to strike a balance between injuring themselves and also, getting through the workday and meeting those demands. So one thing that we see in our practice, you yourself included, is that people get repetitive strains and postural loads on their back and their neck and their arms and their legs, depending on their physical activity. But we know physical activity is helpful. Physical activity is good to build muscular endurance and to build muscular resilience and capacity. So there's got to be a fine line in there. And one thing that I usually do with my patients, say there's a counterbalance in there, is that the things that you do on your daily basis are you have to do, but we have to find some exercises, some stretches, some activities that you can do to balance out that repetitive strain. So take, for example, someone who sits for a long period of time. They're usually in more of a forward flex position, their head's kind of forward, and putting a lot of pressure on their mid-back and the mid-thoracic spine, keeping it locked in flexion. So the number one thing I have them do is to do the exercises, and my exercise protocol with thoracic spine strain include the cat-camel and the thoracic spine rotation. Both are done from a quadruped position. Now, unfortunately, a lot of my patients can't just get on the floor and do those exercises, so what do? They don't do them, and that's a problem. If you're having that strain locked in flexion while you're at work, that should be the exact time you should be doing the counteractive exercises as far as rotation and extension. So we need to balance that out. So here's what I do with my patients. So as you can see here, I have myself bent on a desk or a countertop, and I can perform the cat-camel exercise or the thoracic spine rotation exercise, as you see here, while I'm still standing. So what I can see from that is that if I can peel back what I'm doing with my exercise, I'm still getting what I want to get out of that person as far as range of motion or stretching, but I can allow them to do it in the workforce. I can often have beneficial results. So I would highly recommend doing that with your patients and make their exercise applicable to when they're having their pain. Not just do the bird dog side bridge and dead bug exercise. Those are great exercises. However, most people can't do those in their workforce. There's a great paper from 2007, from the same author, that goes through that. And these people had upper trapezius pain and myalgia. And what they did is they started an exercise routine. They did both strengthening for the upper trapezius, and they also did some aerobic exercise. And they found the exact same things that you see and I see in my practice. Is the very beginning of those, what hurt? Well, it hurt doing the exercise. It hurt doing strengthening of those upper trapezius muscles because they're already inflamed, they're already irritated. But after a 10-week trial of doing those exercises and doing stretching and strengthening, then now those pain and pressure thresholds start to decrease, and that patient is on the road to recovery, but also on the road to pain-free a future, not having that pain come back. So instead of having, oh, Sally, I'm sorry that's hurt you, let's try something else, sometimes, like in our tendinopathy patients, we just say, you know what, suck it up a little bit. Let's get through these exercises. It's going to hurt a little bit at the beginning, but as we start to get through these weeks, you're going to start to see that pain decrease. And the same thing happens with aerobic exercise. Is that patients with upper trapezius stiffness and pain, you can have them doing squats and lunges and walking or whatever that is you're comfortable with and your patient's comfortable with. And what do they notice at the very beginning is really it doesn't help that much. But if they stick with it, then you start to see the results, in this case after 10 weeks. So the take-home point of this message is that just because physical activity is hurting your patients doesn't mean they have to stop doing it. You need to find those right set of exercises that will counterbalance what they're doing at work, to counterbalance that repetitive strain and postural load, and to help get those people pain-free while they're working, and not only when they're in your office, or not only that morning and afternoon exercise session. ChiroUp has done that for you. One of the things that I think that we do well is that we try to select those appropriate exercises for the right condition. It's not just a blanket exercise prescription. It's looking at what do these specific conditions need to counteract whatever postural loads or problems that patient may have. Now, there's always, peel backs and progressions, but you can be rest assured that we've looked at the literature, we know that what the patient should be doing. So take that as a foundation and then play with it. Start to customize your condition reports and start to make some phase 1s and phase 2s that maybe are a little bit different, or create your own condition reports that help people with walking routines or help change their ADL so they can start to change those activities on a daily basis in the workforce. Thank you for listening to this blog. I'll see you next week.